Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Chinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pacharni Nivasesha Srinivadi Paschatade Satarni. So, Hare Krishna. Is there anyone who is coming for the first time tonight? Oh, very nice. Thank you very much. Welcome. Hope you have a good time. So, my wife called me this afternoon and was asking what my topic is going to be. And she suggested, well, Mother's Day. So it's Mother's Day today. And I would like to read a verse from the first canto. This is one of our scriptures called the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, now that's a big word, don't worry about it. The beautiful story of the personality of Godhead. Okay, so this is there are 10 cantos. 10 cantos? 12 cantos, I'm sorry, 12. And this is the first one. Okay, so this series of volumes of books is describing the personality of Godhead. And in our temple, we have deities. In the central altar, we have on our left is Lord Krishna holding a flute, and on his left is his consort, Radharani, his pleasure energy personified, and they are the divine, we call them divine couple. And so, in order to understand who Krishna is, we have to begin at the beginning. There are many, later on in later volumes, there are descriptions of personal pastimes of Krishna, which he exhibited 5,000 years ago on this planet. And so, just like if you want to understand, let's say, like him or not, President Trump. So we know that he's the president of the country, and he does this and that. Okay. But if you really want to understand the person, there's a little more to the story. Okay. So, mundane example, I apologize. But to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the origin of everything, the absolute truth, from whom everything that we experience and beyond. Because there are obviously things that we don't have experience of that are going on. So he's the origin of origins, the cause of all causes. Everything is coming from him ultimately, and he is a person. And this is unique in many of the religions. They talk about God, but they don't really have very much information specifically. So the author of this book, Srimad Bhagavatam, he had compiled a lot of information in the Vedas. Now the word Veda means knowledge, And the Vedic scriptures are akin to like the downtown library. Vast scriptures, and kind of like an owner's manual or a user's manual, shall I say, of living in this world. And on this planet, we have a certain amount of Vedic information. On other planets, they have a lot more. And just like if you want to go downtown to the library and start at one end and read all the books, by the time you get to the other end, you're dead, or bored to death, or confused. So even after compiling all of this information, which formerly was passed down through word of mouth, okay. Nowadays we have books because our memory is very short. Okay, previous to 5,000 years ago, the information was passed down from a spiritual master to his disciples. And then if one of them or some of them became a spiritual master themselves, they'd pass it on. So the information passed down through thousands of millions of years. But even after compiling all of this information, he was feeling despondent. Somewhere, he went to his guru, and I've compiled all these literatures, but there's something that's I'm not feeling it. And the spiritual master said, because you have not described the personality of Godhead, the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Absolute Truth, you should write about Krishna, the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, in the course of describing Krishna, we have to understand not only who he is, but from the beginning, what is his actual position? If we say God is great, how great is he? What makes him great, right? You say, if you have some girlfriend or boyfriend, what's she look like? Well, she's really beautiful. Okay, can you give me any details? Well, and you make some excuse. What do we know about God? Okay, well, he's great, God is great, and, there's really not too much information. But we have to understand not only his position on a personal level, but what his capabilities are and how this world was created in detail. And leading up to different, in this series of books, there are different interactions with his devotees. We're mostly demigods, but also great saints and sages who have personal realization. Okay. So if you want to learn about somebody, right, you go and, pound on the door and say, I'm here to, find out about so-and-so. And it's like, no, you call the cops. If you want to understand someone, you have to have someone who knows him and has a personal relationship with him already, who can basically introduce you and help you understand who this person actually is. Suppose you want to know Mr. Elon Musk or whatever. Okay. So you can't just barge in on him. You have someone that knows him that can introduce you and tell you all the details so that someday you may be introduced and actually create a relationship. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead, if you study some of the Hindu scriptures, and many of the Indians in our congregation have heard about Krishna and different pastimes and things that Krishna did. For example, this temple, we have named our deities Shri Shri Radha Giridhari. So that pastime is that at 7 years old, Krishna lifted a hill. There was a great rainstorm, And so Krishna lifted a hill, and everyone got underneath while it was storming and flooding and everything. And so who can do that? Okay. So there are many pastimes like this, but if we understand how he is God himself, then our doubts start to melt away because, okay, well, if he created the universe, I guess it's not very hard for him to hold up a hill on his little pinky. Okay. So these are, and there are many other pastimes that Krishna exhibited. But we have to understand how he is God, how he is the Supreme Person, and what he can do and what his position is, that all the other gods in the heavenly world bow down to Krishna. And so, how is he the absolute truth? How is he the personality of Godhead? Okay, so understanding all these things leading up to the personal interaction of Krishna with his devotees and what those relationships actually are. So, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who appeared 500 years ago, revealed the highest relationship of Krishna and his devotees in the relationship of a conjugal relationship, as we in this mundane world think of as, boyfriend, girlfriend. Okay. So this is very esoteric, and Lord Chaitanya did not speak openly about it, except in some very confidential devotees that he had. Okay. So it happens that when Krishna appeared, he had a mother and a father. Really. And as it happened, Krishna's mother and father, when Krishna appeared, were in prison. They're in the prison of King Kamsa. And so Krishna was transferred to another family where he grew up in Vrindavan. So these pastimes of Krishna, who can become the mother of God? Krishna is the origin of everyone. Okay, but Krishna has relationships with his devotees. And this is Krishna's pleasure. And reestablishing our personal relationship with Krishna is the goal of life. That's what ultimately the goal of Krishna consciousness and the goal of life is, to understand who we really are. Okay. So one of the relationships is that Krishna has a mother. So I'm not a mother, obviously. But if you have children, your whole life is about that child. Okay, you will throw yourself in front of a train. You'll leap off a cliff or do whatever to save a child. Right? That's the normal thing. So Krishna's mother was beside herself because Krishna was doing all kinds of things that she hoped he wouldn't do, but Krishna is not limited. He can do anything. So his mother is increasing her love for her son, right? Krishna is, yanking the chain, right? So at one point, Krishna was on the lap of his mother, who had some milk on the stove, and the milk boiled over, so she put him down to go fetch the milk, keep it from burning. So Krishna didn't like that. So Krishna did some mischief and did a lot of different things. So to become mother of Krishna is not an ordinary thing. Okay. And also there were other people in the village who also had the same feelings towards Krishna. And there are different kinds of relationships which we also have in this world that also exist in the spiritual world. Just like if you have someone who's a servant, he comes and does something for you, okay? Or perhaps you have, a friend, and you hang out together, or you go hiking together, or you do different things, okay? And then you have parents, right? We'll have parents. And so different devotees can have a different relationship with Krishna, which is a whole nother topic, because right now we're only used to what we do here. So if you have a girlfriend or boyfriend, and we hear that Krishna had, girlfriends or had, other friends, we tend to put ourselves in Krishna's position. Oh, I know all about that. But that's not actually, we have a misunderstanding of it because we're very lusty. Okay, so we think of it in terms of sex. Okay. But in Krishna's world, everything, like if we do something like have an affair with someone, that's not good. Okay. So anything that we find here, if we hear that Krishna is doing something similar, we think, oh, he's, I'm like Krishna. I also have affairs. But Krishna didn't have any affairs. So anything that Krishna does is good. And our imitation of Krishna is bad. Okay. So since Krishna is the all good, he never does anything that's not beneficial for his devotees. Our misfortune is our own doing. Okay. So when we're given instruction in various religions, 10 Commandments, and thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do that, so on and so on. Okay. Because we have a tendency to do these things, and they aren't good. The real truth is that these are restrictions because right now we are, in a sense, kind of ill. If you go to the hospital and the doctor says you're not supposed to eat, well, wait a minute, but that may be part of your cure. Okay. So our real position is we're servants of Krishna. And he's the enjoyer, not us. But we don't understand that we're connected to Krishna, and when Krishna is pleased, we feel pleasure. We haven't cemented that understanding. But if you serve Krishna, if you do something for Krishna, you feel happy. It's like, I don't know where it's coming from, but I feel good. When you serve Krishna, and not only you become happy, other people also become happy. So in the spiritual world where Krishna lives, everyone is serving Krishna, and everyone is satisfied and happy. And in fact, they're inclined to encourage and glorify someone who's doing more. This person is loving Krishna more. He's doing something more for Krishna than I can do. So instead of becoming envious, let's support this person. Here, look, this person is doing such a nice service for Krishna, pleasing Krishna. Okay. So this is the understanding of Krishna consciousness. Actually, not surprisingly, but the Mormons also have this idea that God should be the enjoyer. I had a girlfriend in high school. We couldn't go to the dance, we couldn't go to the movies, we couldn't do anything, because their philosophy is we're not supposed to be the enjoyer. And in modern day, it's like, what? Wait a minute. I'm supposed to be the center of the world, right? I'm the Lord of all I survey. Okay, so this is in order to enlighten people. There's a little bit of a thankless task because people don't want to hear it. Don't preach to me, because nobody wants to know that I'm doing something wrong, right? Have you ever tried to give someone some unsolicited advice? It's not always appreciated, put it that way. So if somebody says, you're a sinner, you're going to go to hell, like, I've heard that before, like, leave me alone, right? So we don't really understand, but when you get a taste, then things start making sense. Okay. When I first started coming to the temple, I wanted to know what Because in I got a Bhagavad Gita, and Bhagavad Gita says, on practically every page, devotional service to God is the only way to understand God. So, wait, okay, what is this devotional type service they're talking about? So I called the temple. He said, just come down on Saturday, we'll show you some devotional service, So I walk in the office and, take this nice young man around to the kitchen, show him some, devotional service. And there awaited a mountain of pots. And one of the things I hated was washing pots. And at the time in LA, it was an old church, and they had classrooms for the kids. And those classroom sinks, they're about 12 inches by 12, and they have that little spout that comes up. And you have to wash a pot this big in a sink the size of a thimble, right? So, and it's like, I get it, devotional service. Okay, so this is the idea. But at the end of the day, after doing different things, when I came down to the temple room and the devotees gathered for a kirtan, the light went on. This is why devotees are so happy. They're blissed out. We have this term called being blissed out. That I'm experiencing, I'm feeling this happiness. And now I get it. I get it. This is why they dance around in the street and they're always happy. How come you guys are always happy? Why don't you get a job and cut your hair? Right? That was what they used to tell us. Right? So, devotional service is something that is in the beginning as a practice, and later on it becomes spontaneous, right? You literally fake it till you make it. Okay, we have certain rules and regulations that we follow, which most of society is not anxious to take up. When no intoxication, no tea, no coffee, cigarettes, or anything, no illicit sex, no gambling, and no eating of animal products. Okay. So pretty much in the society, that's kind of what everybody does. And you're telling us that we can't do that? So how are we able to do it? Well, that's because you have a taste for something better. Very simple. If you don't give the baby some candy, he's going to put anything he can find into his mouth, right? So you give him something to occupy him. So we're occupying our senses in service to Krishna. Okay, that's basically what devotional service is. Okay, and the spiritual master tells us what he wants us to do. And in the beginning of the movement, sometimes Srila Prabhupada would ask us to do things that we didn't think we could do. But to please Krishna, devotees were empowered. And that's the mercy of the spiritual master. So, getting back to today's topic, have you ever heard that we have 7 mothers? Okay, we have 7 mothers. Okay. So I'm going to read from the first canto, chapter 11, Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Translation. After entering the house of his father, he, meaning Krishna, was embraced by the mothers present, and the Lord offered his obeisances unto them by placing his head at their feet. The mothers were headed by Devaki, his real mother. Purport. It appears that Vasudeva, the father of Lord Krishna, had completely separate residential quarters where he lived with his 18 wives, out of whom Srimati Devaki is the real mother of Lord Krishna. But in spite of this, all other stepmothers were equally affectionate to him, as will be evident from the following verse. Lord Krishna also did not distinguish his real mother from his stepmothers, and he equally offered his obeisances unto all the wives of Vasudeva present on the occasion. According to scriptures also, there are 7 mothers. 1, the real mother. 2, the wife of the spiritual master. 3, the wife of a Brahmin, a priest. 4, the wife of the king. 5, the cow. 6, the nurse. And 7, the earth. All of them are mothers. Even by this injunction of the Shastras, the stepmother, who is the wife of the father, is also as good as the mother, because the father is also one of the spiritual masters. Lord Krishna, the Lord of the universe, plays the part of an ideal son just to teach others how to treat their stepmothers. Okay. And the next verse, the mothers, after embracing their son, sat him on their laps. Due to pure affection, milk sprang from their breasts. They were overwhelmed with delight, and the tears from their eyes wedded the Lord. Purport. When Lord Krishna was at Vrindavan, even the cows would become moistened by affection towards him, and he would draw milk from the nipples of every affectionate living being. So what to speak of the stepmothers, who are also as good as his own mother? So it's also said that the Vedas are also considered the mother. Veda Mata, right? So if you want to know who your father is, who do you ask? No, you go to the laboratory and you test every man on the earth, and by so many, how many? What's the statistically how if this person could be 1 out of 10 billion? No. Hey mom, who's my dad? No, he's right over there. To see his picture, right? So that's the easy way. Okay, the easy way is you go to the scripture, and the Vedas, the scriptures, describe God. Okay, if you throw away the scripture, then like Buddha, because of an emergency, Lord Buddha told his followers that throw away the Vedas, because they were misunderstanding what the Vedas were saying. That in the Vedas it says that there are certain sacrifices that you can perform. And so not understanding further about what these sacrifices actually are and how they're to be performed, they were just slaughtering animals willy-nilly, here, there, everywhere, just killing animals. So Lord Buddha had to come along and say, no, stop this violence. Ahimsa, non-violence. Okay, get rid of your scripture, throw them, burn them, put them in the ocean, whatever. Okay, just follow me. So God came and taught atheism. It's very interesting. Later on, Buddhism was pushed out. It was over a period of time. It was an emergency, and so there were certain things that happened and philosophies that sprang up to remedy the situation. Buddhism was driven out of India by Shankaracharya. And Shankara, when Buddha came, he said that he didn't speak about God. He just says there's nothing out there. There's no person. So Shankaracharya came along and he said, no, there is a God, but he doesn't have a form. Okay, and so inconceivable. No one can understand. There's no form. And then 500 years ago, Lord Chaitanya came along and defeated that philosophy. No, God has a form. Okay, and this form is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Okay, so he defeated Shankaracharya's philosophy. Unfortunately, still to this day, Shankaracharya's philosophy is still being followed. And there are yoga societies and things that still believe that ultimately we're all God. We just forgot. So to reestablish ourselves as God, we have to worship Krishna. And we worship these different deities, and they do the same things that we do. They have kirtan and they have bhajan and they read the same scriptures, but ultimately they say we're all God. So we are opposed to that. Okay, we are not God, because if God is really God, he never loses his position, right? Like God can't, if he has a toothache, he has to go to a doctor. He can't cure himself. So, unfortunately, in this day and age, people are easily misled. Religion is taken as irreligion and otherwise, the other way around. We don't really want to know, can we really handle the truth? You can't handle the truth. Remember that line? Okay. Do we really want to know we're tiny, insignificant servants of Krishna? Does anybody want to think that I'm a servant? No, we want to hire a servant. We want someone to serve us and become a servant of God. Well, what does that mean? It means no more fun. We don't enjoy. That's what, on the surface, that's what we kind of think, because that's what we're used to. But Krishna consciousness introduces the fact that we are meant to serve Krishna and we enjoy the relationship. Okay? If there is a relationship between a husband and wife, who's enjoying more? The husband. Well, there are exceptions, of course. But, in a idealistic relationship, the man is in charge and he's, taking charge of the girl, and, she looks up to him and he's, taking care of her, it's kind of like that. But they both enjoy. And so in our relationship with Krishna, even though Krishna is the Lord, he can have very affectionate relationship with his devotees. And sometimes when Krishna was growing up with his friends, sometimes they'd have a little, you get on the other guy's shoulders, right? They have to carry somebody, right? If you win the contest, right, you have to. So sometimes, Krishna would carry some of his friends on his back, right? Although he is God himself, he can do anything, but he has this affectionate relationship with his devotees in different ways. Okay, so it gets a little esoteric as far as understanding how God can put himself in a position to maybe even be subordinate. That Krishna's mother is chastising him, right? Krishna would do naughty things, and so his mom's laying down the law, and Krishna says, "Oh no," he's getting scared, right? So this is the nature of Krishna. There's all these different relationships with Krishna. There's a planet that Krishna lives, and that's the supreme planet, which is called Krishna Loka, or Goloka. And in this planet, his devotees don't even consider the fact that he's God. They don't really care. It's like, oh, whatever. They just love him. They don't have any idea of, I'd say they don't have any idea, but their relationship is not, awe and reverence and, oh my God, they have a more familiar type of relationship. And for Krishna, that's very pleasing. Very, very pleasing. I'll give an example. Srila Prabhupada tells this story. There was some devotees who went to London to preach, and there was a bigwig government official. I'm mixing the stories up, actually. Someone came to see this statesman, and he was told, no, just you have to wait. He's busy right now. The guy's like, wait a minute, I'm Mr. Big in my own country, I'm waiting. How come I have to wait? No, he'll be out shortly. So somehow or other, he managed to peek, through the keyhole or something, and he saw that this man was playing horsey with his little grandchild. Okay, so here's this big minister, okay, but what's he doing? He's playing with his little grandchild, right? So Krishna can be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he has relationships with his devotees. They're very confidential, okay? So, like I said, we have to understand how Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how he's the creator, how everything has come into existence. And once we understand who Krishna actually is, then we can understand a little more about the actual features of Krishna's relationships with his devotees. So it's a very confidential topic. So, are there any questions or comments? Or yes.
So one of the points that I'm getting from your lecture is that Mother's Day should be spelled M-O-T-H-E-R-S apostrophe, not apostrophe S. Is that correct?
Mother's Day is what?
In other words, it's plural. Mother's Day.
Yeah, Mother's Day.
But you won't find that on the calendar. It's one mother, apostrophe S. Your mother. They don't know about the mothers. You know what I'm saying? So I think we should have a movement to get that apostrophe removed. In line with the Vedic Shastra. So many mothers.
Yeah. The Mother Earth, right? And the cow. The cow is sacred. And then Ganga Mata. So Ganga is also Veda Mata. Yeah. And so many mothers. And if you can fill in some more information if you like. But the love of a mother is the closest thing to pure love in this world. Okay? I'm sorry. Love of the mother for the child. For love of the mother for the child, yeah. Because generally speaking, we think in terms of love, but it's more kind of like a business deal. You know, I scratch your back, I scratch mine. You know, we get married, but there's some problem with our marital relations, then it's like, you know, bye-bye. We expect something in return. But a lover of the mother for the child is not like that. The mother's not thinking, you know, my kid's gonna, thank me. Sometimes the kids grow up and want to head for the ends of the earth to get away from the family. But the mother's not thinking that he's going to, for all the trouble he's giving me, she still loves the child, right? So in relationship with Krishna, sometimes things seem, in some circumstances, to get a little difficult. Okay, so for example, in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna to fight this war. And Arjuna is like, I don't think so. I don't really want to do this. And so Krishna explains the whole Bhagavad Gita. And in the end, Arjuna is like, oh, I got it. I got this. And he proceeds to fight a war against all of his kinsmen and his guru and his teachers and his, cousins. And, it was very traumatic. You find in other scriptures also that some devotee or some saint is being challenged to do something that he didn't want to do. And so, someone has to follow their faith. And so sometimes the devotees are put into difficulty. Srila Prabhupada came to America. And previously, in his previous life, he was doing business. And he was very successful until at a certain point his business failed. So you have a lot of money and think, oh, if I use this money, I'll use it for preaching or whatever, right? But his business failed. So when he came to America, he had no money. On the way over, he had 2 heart attacks. So when he comes over here and, nobody wants to hear what he wants to tell, right? He didn't immediately introduce these 4 rules, but it took over a year, and no one was coming. And many other challenges, and especially when the movement got started, you have devotees who, disagreeing among themselves, and so on and so on and so on. And nobody invited Prabhupada. Nobody supported him. He didn't have somebody at home sending money or help or anything. Not only that, when he went back to India, many of his godbrothers and other people were criticizing him. How are you initiating, mlechas and, low people in the West, giving them sannyas? He was heavily criticized. And if he had some success, his godbrothers would be envious of him. So Srila Prabhupada went through a lot of difficulties to establish Krishna consciousness. He was he blazed the trail. So and we know many, just like we just had a celebration of Lord Nrsingadev appearance and the disappearance of Hiranyakashipu. And Hiranyakashipu's son was a devotee and went through all kinds of torture from his father. And there are some of the devotees, their parents had them, tried to have them deprogrammed and, kidnapped from the movement. So sometimes Krishna puts his devotees into difficulty. The Pandavas, leading up to the battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna was related to Arjuna and the Pandavas, but they lost in a gambling match, and they were banished to the forest. They lost everything, and even though they knew that Krishna was God, but they didn't go to Krishna and say, "Hey, what's the story here? You're supposed to be God, man. Help me, help us out here." They didn't, and they knew that Krishna ultimately was going to save them. And so sometimes, Krishna puts his devotees into difficulty. During Lord Chaitanya's appearance, Haridas Thakur was chanting in the marketplace, and the Muslim ruler, had him whipped. They took him to 22 different marketplaces, and they whipped him. He should have died, but he wasn't dying. So the people who were whipping him was like, "Hey, man, you got to die, because otherwise, the ruler is going to say we didn't do our job, so we're in trouble." So he said, "Okay." So he faked like it was dead, and they threw him in the river, right? So sometimes, the Lord puts his devotees into difficulty, and sometimes, if you become a devotee, sometimes Krishna can take everything away. Krishna's name is Hari, one who takes away. So people sometimes afraid to become devotees because they think, God might take everything from me, make me destitute. And that's, as we see Srila Prabhupada, that actually happened to Srila Prabhupada. Okay. But these things happen to advanced devotees. We should not fear that somehow or other if I become a devotee, that my life's going to be ruined. We should know that Krishna is there and he's very affectionate. But sometimes, things happen. Sometimes you join the movement and your girlfriend drops you, or you lose your job, or So Krishna wants everyone to revive their relationship with him. If you have everything, what are you missing? The guy's a millionaire, right? Billionaire, whatever. Okay, what do you like? You like your relationships, your family relationships, your children, the children's children, right? You want that affection, right? All the money in the world can't buy that. And so Krishna's plan is for all of us to revive our relationship with Krishna, because he has everything we don't need. He wants us to have a relationship, but it's not like he's lacking something. It's for us. The relationship is ours. So what we're doing in this temple, chanting Hare Krishna and listening to lectures, and you go home and chant and offer your food to Krishna, becoming Krishnaized. And as time goes on, your relationship develops. It does take some time, just like anything. So, any other questions, comments, rebuttals? Yes, Hare Krishna.
Can you list the 7
Yeah. Okay. The real mother, the wife of the spiritual master, the wife of a Brahmin or a priest. Do you know what a Brahmin is? Yeah. Okay. Wife of a Brahmin, the wife of the king. We don't have kings anymore. The cow, the nurse, and Mother Earth. Mother Earth. Okay. When I grew up, we had a cleaning lady, and but she was more like a nanny. When my mom wasn't there, one time I got my finger stuck in the mixer, and she was there to, to calm me down, So the nurse is also. Then the Vedas are also known as Mother, and also Mother Ganga, the Ganges. So there are many, many mothers, and there may be others. So that's the Mother's Day. So I humbly offer my respects to all the ladies who have children. The mother, most of the time, is actually raising the kids. The dad's out working in the field or factory or whatever. But I can say in my life, whatever I am today is from my mom. And the boys generally take after the mother, and the girls generally take after the father. It's just kind of little trivia, whatever. So anyway, so thank you very much, all you fine mothers, and Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming and listening to me. Hare Krishna. So I think there'll be more